My parents gave my room to my sister's baby while I was away, so I rented a place. Cut contact and never looked back, despite their pleas. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and I've always felt like I was the odd one out in my family. My parents had a special place in their hearts for my younger sister. She was the golden child. Everything she did was met with praise, while I was expected to do more just to get any kind of recognition. No matter what I accomplished, it was always her that took the spotlight. I remember sitting at the dinner table, her telling a story and my parents hanging on every word. While I barely got a good job for the time, I spent cleaning the entire house or fixing something around the yard. I used to think it was just me overthinking things. But as the years went by, the pattern became clear. She could never do wrong, and I could never do enough. It wasn't just the small things, either. Wit was the big moments too. I got into a great college, but it was her first solo exhibition as an artist that everyone celebrated. I made a huge career move when I got a job offer from a big company out of state. And what did I hear from my parents? Well, we hope it works out, but don't forget, your sister needs you here. I knew then that nothing would ever change. And I'd always be just the other child, the one who wasn't special enough. But I tried to make peace with it. I thought that maybe if I just worked hard enough, I'd earn some of that attention. So, when I got the job offer that seemed like a dream come true, I left for a few months, hoping that maybe some space would give me the perspective I needed. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something on my own. What I didn't know was that when I came back, everything I thought I knew about my family would be shattered forever. I came back from my job feeling like I'd finally made something of myself. I imagined walking into my old room, feeling that sense of comfort, again the same familiar scent of wood and old books. I'd worked so hard to get that job, to finally stand on my own 2 feet, and now I could come back home to recharge for a bit. But when I opened the door to what used to be my sanctuary, everything was different. The room was completely rearranged. The bed that I'd spent countless nights lying in, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I wasn't enough, was gone. In its place was a crib with soft pink sheets, toys scattered across the floor, and baby clothes hung in the closet. It took me a moment to process it. I stood there, frozen, trying to convince myself that this was a joke. But no, this wasn't a joke. My room had been given away to my sister's newborn baby. When I asked my parents about it, they tried to brush it off like it was no big deal. "It's temporary," my mom said, as though that would make it okay. "The baby needs the space, honey. You'll understand when you have kids of your own." I felt a tightness in my chest. Temporary. It had been months since I left, and they couldn't even give me a heads up. I was supposed to just roll with it. I tried to keep my calm, but I felt betrayed. It hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't just coming home to visit, was coming back to reclaim my space, my place in this family. But that was already gone. I wasn't important enough to be given any say in the matter. My sister had her life, her baby, and it felt like they'd forgotten I was even part of this family. What hurt the most wasn't just losing my room. It was the realization that, for them, I'd never really mattered that much. I couldn't just let it go. I needed answers. I wasn't the kind of person to blow up over small things, but this wasn't small. I'd been away for months, putting everything into a career that was supposed to matter. And here I was, returning to find my family had decided that my needs, my place in this house, didn't matter. I called my parents into the living room that evening. I remember how they looked at me, almost expectant, like they already knew what I was about to say. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask? You just gave my room away." My dad shrugged, his eyes darting around the room like he couldn't even meet my gaze. "We didn't think it would be an issue. You've been gone so long, and your sister's baby needs a place." His words were the same tired excuse they'd been feeding me for years. I felt the anger rise in me, but I held it back. I wanted to understand. But what was there to understand? Mom added, "We didn't want to make a big deal out of it. We thought you'd be fine with it." Fine. I hadn't even been asked. They made me feel like I was being unreasonable for wanting something that was mine. And then they softened it with those empty apologies, as if that would fix everything. But it didn't. It only made it worse. They were offering apologies, but still holding up my sister on a pedestal. As usual, I turned to my sister, hoping maybe she would see how messed up this was. But she didn't care. She was too busy with her baby to even acknowledge the situation. She just gave me this half-hearted smile, like it didn't affect her in the slightest. "I didn't think it was a big deal either," she said, looking at me like I was overreacting. It hit me then. My dreams, my needs, my entire existence were just suffocating under the weight of my family's expectations and their need to keep everything centered around her. The resentment was bubbling up. I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I started to wonder if maybe it was time to leave for good. Maybe I didn't belong here anymore. And honestly, maybe I didn't even want to. After that night, I thought maybe I'd been too harsh. I wanted to believe that my family didn't see me as a burden, that maybe this was all a misunderstanding. I was still their son, right? I was the one who'd spent years trying to make them proud, doing everything I could to fit in. I didn't want to burn bridge sigh, just wanted to feel like I mattered. So, I decided to try again. I approached them the next day, sitting down with both of them at the kitchen table. The air was thick with tension, but I pushed through. "I don't want to fight," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for a little respect. Maybe move the baby into the other room, or, if that's not possible, I can stay somewhere else for a while. Just until I get settled." My mom glanced at my dad, exchanging one of those looks that always made me feel like I wasn't even in the room. It wasn't even a real discussion. "We're doing what's best for the family," she said, her voice distant. "We don't want to disrupt the baby's routine. It's just easier this way. You'll understand when you have kids of your own." It was the same excuse. Family needs always came first, no matter how small or personal my needs were. My dad nodded in agreement, his expression blank. "This is just a temporary situation, son. It's better this way for now." I wanted to scream. I'd never felt so small. I wasn't even worth the time to discuss. My request wasn't heard, just dismissed like I was asking for too much, and then it hit me the cold realization that I had been chasing a relationship with people who had never truly seen me. I wasn't their priority, and I never would be. My role in this family was always secondary, always optional, and that's when the seeds of doubt started to sprout. Was I ever truly loved? Or was I just a backup plan, waiting for the time when my sister didn't need them anymore? That was the moment I knew, deep down, things would never be the same. I had been walking on eggshells for too long, trying to make peace with a family that would never really see me. Every conversation, every attempt to explain myself, felt like I was asking for permission to exist in my own life. The emotional drain was unbearable. And after the last conversation, when they dismissed my feelings again, something inside me snapped. I couldn't keep begging for their attention, their validation. I made a decision, one that I knew would change everything. I was leaving. I didn't have a plan, didn't know what my next move was, but I couldn't stay under that roof any longer. So I found a small apartment, barely big enough for the few things I had, but it was mine. I signed the lease that day. As I walked out of the real estate office, I felt this weight lift off my shoulders like I could finally breathe. I was taking control of my life. I didn't tell them right away. It wasn't something I wanted to confront face to face. But when I finally did, I thought there'd be some kind of emotional reaction. I was leaving. This was a huge step. I was breaking away from the family that had never truly understood me, and I thought they might care. But when I told my parents, they acted as if it was just another phase. My mom barely blinked. Well, that's your choice. But remember, family is always here if you need us. My dad didn't even seem to register it. You're an adult. You do what you need to do. There was no pleading. No apology. They didn't understand the gravity of the situation, and that hit me harder than anything. They just expected me to come back, like I always had before, like nothing ever changed. But it wasn't going to be that easy anymore. As I stood in that tiny apartment, surrounded by empty walls and a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years, I realized something. I felt more free in that tiny space than I ever had at home. The air was different here, clean, unburdened by years of emotional manipulation. I was free to exist without having to fight for it. And that felt like the first step toward reclaiming my life. It didn't take long for my parents to reach out after I moved into the apartment. At first, I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear from them. But when my phone buzzed with a text from my mom, I couldn't ignore it. Her message was full of guilt, the kind of guilt that made me feel like I was the one who had done something wrong. "We didn't realize how much this hurt you," it read. "We thought you'd be understanding. Please, come home. We'll fix everything. It's just a phase, and the baby really needs the space right now." I read the message over and over, trying to make sense of it. A phase I'd been gone for months, and now they were acting like my sister's baby was the only reason they'd taken my room. They never once stopped to consider how I'd feel about it, how it might affect me. But now, suddenly, it was all about me. They were trying to make me feel like the villain in this story, as if I was the one who was being unreasonable by wanting the smallest amount of respect. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process. But the calls kept coming. My mom left voicemail after voicemail, apologizing and begging me to come back. "We're family," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "Family sticks together, and we need you. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please, just come home." As much as I wanted to believe her, I couldn't. The more they tried to guilt me, the more I realized how manipulative they had been over the years. It wasn't just about the roomette, it was about everything. Every time I'd been pushed aside in favor of my sister, every time I'd sacrificed my own happiness for their approval, it all came rushing back. The final blow came when my dad called. And I heard that same old excuse. "It's just temporary, son. Your sister's baby needs a place. You'll be back soon." Don't throw everything away for something so small. That was it. The cold truth sank in like a stone. No matter what they said, I had always been an afterthought in their eyes. I wasn't worth fighting for. I had been just their son, nothing more, nothing less. And in that moment, I realized they never saw me for who I truly was. I thought I had already hit rock bottom. But then my parents crossed a line I never expected. It was the day after my dad left another voicemail. His voice, usually so calm, was shaking with emotion. "We've given so much for you, son," he said, his words slow and deliberate. "All the sacrifices we've made, everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. By walking away." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. The guilt trip was suffocating. He went on about how they'd worked hard to give me everything, how they'd put their own lives on hold for me, how they had always been there for me. I could almost hear the unspoken message beneath his words. "You owe us this. You owe us your loyalty. You owe us your happiness." It wasn't the first time they'd used guilt to control me, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like the last straw. I hadn't realized it before, but in that moment, something inside me broke. The words they'd used for years, the manipulations, the emotional games, I was finally seeing them for what they really were. It wasn't love that they were offering me. It was control. It was a constant demand for my loyalty, my attention, without ever giving me the same in return. It hurt more than I ever expected. I tried to push the feeling away, but the truth kept gnawing at me. Had they ever truly loved me? Or had I just been an extension of their own need to feel validated? I spent my whole life trying to make them proud, trying to fit into a mold that never really belonged to me. And now, I was starting to wonder if they ever truly saw me as a person with my own wants and needs, or just as someone to mold into what they wanted. The more I thought about it, the more it stung. Every sacrifice I'd made, every moment I'd put their needs ahead of my own, was met with empty promises. I wasn't there, Sunai. Was a tool, a project, something they could shape to fit their ideal picture of who I should be. And I wasn't sure I could ever forgive them for it. The days alone in the small apartment felt like a constant battle between what I knew was right and what I desperately wanted to believe. I thought that once I made the decision to leave, the weight of the years would lift, but instead, the silence grew louder. It was hard not to miss the idea of family, the holidays, the birthdays, the moments where, despite everything, they were supposed to be there for me. Even now, I could still hear the echoes of their voices in my head. And it made me feel like I was missing something I'd always wanted. There were nights when I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the walls of the apartment, thinking about everything I left behind. Should I have tried harder? Should I have worked it out? Gone back to them, even if they didn't deserve it? The loneliness was suffocating. It wasn't just the absence of my family. It was the absence of everything I thought I knew. The guilt started creeping in, making me question if maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe they hadn't meant to hurt me. Maybe I was overreacting, but every time I thought about going back, about trying to reconcile the image of them dismissing my pain, brushing it aside like it didn't matter, hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't forget what they did. I couldn't pretend like things were okay when they'd shown me, time and time again, that I was an afterthought. There were moments, fleeting and weak, where I missed them. But I wasn't stupid. I knew the truth now. Family wasn't just about blood, was about respect. And I couldn't go back to being that person who let myself be constantly discarded. Maybe I was too harsh, but I couldn't forget the way they made me feel. I couldn't forget the look on my dad's face when he acted like I was just supposed to understand why everything revolved around my sister. I had to stand by my decision. Even if the guilt made it feel impossible, it was only a matter of time before my parents showed up at my apartment. I hadn't heard from them in days, but I knew it was coming. When I opened the door to find them standing there, my mom with tears in her eyes, my dad with that defeated look on his face, felt the tension hit me like a physical blow. They didn't knock, didn't wait for an invitation. They just barged in like they always had, expecting me to welcome them with open arms. "We're sorry," my mom said, her voice shaky. "We didn't realize how much we hurt you. This isn't how we want things to be. We want to make it right." She reached out, almost pleading, but I took a step back, feeling every inch of that cold, empty space between us. "We're family," my dad added, his voice flat, almost rehearsed. "This is all just a phase. You're our son, and we need you. Come back, please. We'll fix things. We'll make changes." I stood there, frozen, as they continued to speak over each other, promising that they'd change, that they'd do better. But the words felt hollow, rehearsed. This wasn't genuine remorse. It was desperation. It was about control, about trying to fix something they'd broken without ever truly acknowledging how deep the wounds went. In that moment, everything that had been building up inside, Mitha, resentment, the pain, the years of feeling like I didn't matter, came to a head. I looked at them, at the people I thought would always have my back. And I realized something. I'd spent my whole life waiting for them to fight for me, to see me for who I truly was. But they never did. They never fought for me the way I needed them to. They only fought to keep things comfortable for themselves, to keep their perfect family image intact. I don't think you'll ever understand how much I needed you to fight for me, I said, my voice thick with emotion. But it's too late now. The words hung in the air, heavier than I thought they'd feel. It wasn't just the end of a conversation. It was the end of an era. I didn't need their apologies. I needed their love, their support. And I realized now that I would never get it. The silence between us was deafening. And as I watched them leave, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: catharsis. For the first time, I wasn't begging for their approval. I was finally free. A week had passed since the confrontation with my parents, and I thought I'd heard the last of them. But then, one evening, my sister called. I didn't pick up at first. I didn't feel ready to hear any more empty apologies, especially not from her. But something told me I should, so I did. "Hey," she said, her voice quiet. There was an awkwardness in the air that I hadn't expected. "Can we talk?" I sighed, unsure of where this was going. "What's there to talk about?" "I've already told Mom and Dad how I feel." "I know," she responded, a pause hanging between us. "But I think you need to hear this from me, too." I felt my heart rate pick up. What now? I braced myself for more of the same, but then she dropped something I didn't see coming. "I've been feeling guilty too," she admitted, her voice breaking just a little. "I've always been the golden child, and I hate it. It's not what it looks like. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask them to make me the perfect one, the one who could do no wrong. And every time you were pushed aside, I felt it. I never knew how to help, and I couldn't even tell you that I hated it. But it hurt to see you treated like that, and now I just feel like I've been part of the problem." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. My sister, the one who'd always had everything, the one who seemed untouchable in our family's eyes, was confessing that she too had felt the pressure of their expectations. I was shocked. I had always seen her as the one who had it all figured out, the one who didn't need to fight for attention because she always had it. But hearing her voice crack, hearing the guilt and frustration in her words, shattered the illusion. Maybe we had both been victims of the same thing. The same game my parents played. The same game that had torn us apart in different ways. She hadn't been the perfect child because she wanted to be. She'd been molded into it. Just like I had been pushed into the role of the forgotten one. Maybe we were both casualties of the same game, I said. My voice barely above a whisper. It was an unexpected twist. One that changed everything I thought I knew about my family. For the first time, I realized that while my betrayal was painful, my sister had carried her own burden. And maybe, just maybe, we weren't so different after all. After everything, I decided to reach out to my parents. I wasn't angry anymore, was heartbroken. The years of trying to make them see me, to make them care, had worn me down. I needed them to understand how deeply their actions had hurt me. How long I'd carried the weight of feeling invisible. We sat down together. And for the first time, my mom and dad didn't try to justify their actions. Their voices were soft, their eyes filled with genuine regret. "We're so sorry," my dad said, his voice breaking. "We never meant to make you feel like this." My mom added, "We failed you. We didn't see it before, but we do now." But as I listened, something shifted. Their words felt hollow, not because I didn't want to believe them, but because I couldn't ignore how much damage had been done. The trust was broken beyond repair. They were sorry, yes, but they'd never been the parents I needed. I'll never forget. "But I've chosen to move forward," I said, the weight of it settling in. I realized then that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. I could heal on my own, without them. Now, as I sit in this small apartment, I can finally breathe. I've built my life from the ground up, piece by piece, and for the first time, it feels like mine, truly mine. No more manipulation, No more emotional guilt trips. I found peace in my independence, and while the wounds my family left will take time to heal, I'm stronger for having walked away. I look back at my family, and I see it all clearly now. The manipulation, the emotional abuse, they were never my fault. I spent so long believing I had to earn their love, their attention. But I don't need that validation anymore. I don't need to apologize for choosing myself. They will always be a part of my past, but they don't have control over my future. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It means freeing yourself. I've let go of the weight I carried for so long, and now I can finally move forward without looking back. I built my life from the ground up, and I'll never let anyone take that from me again. It's my truth, and it's all mine now.